On July 8th, 2022, Klonoa Harris tweeted, "I know people are making jokes, but this is a serious situation. In Japanese culture, prime ministers, even former ones, are considered important figures, and assassinating them is a serious cultural," and then the tweet gets cut off in the screenshot. And Noel quote tweeted that to say, "Murder is actually really frowned in Japan. It goes against the traditional concept of ikiru, which means to live." This is the Museum of Twitter, the show where we talk about the most important tweets in the history of Twitter.com. It's Subscriber Sunday, where my Patreon subscribers nominate and then vote on which tweet I cover. And this week they chose this absolutely wonderful tweet. Now this is one of those tweets where you could assume that everyone involved is joking or no one involved is joking. Now my personal belief is that the person being quoted, Klonoa Harris, is being serious, but I think that Noel is definitely joking. Particularly because I think that Noel is referencing an older post from someone named Mike the Orange, or Meek the Orange, I apologize, where she was giving a list of the top 5 things you should never do in Japan, and her first entry was murder. Murder is actually very illegal in Japan. It goes against the traditional Japanese concept of ikiru, in which they believe human beings should live. It is a beautiful belief you should respect when you come to Japan. I thought about making this one the one that I did in the intro, since it technically is the original, but I do think that it being used in the quote tweet is what made it famous. And of course, why this is funny, why it's absurd for someone to say it seriously is like, murder is frowned upon everywhere. It's illegal everywhere. And the reason why Noel said it to Klonoa Harris is because assassinating former leaders, not just Shinzo Abe, who Klonoa Harris's post is about, is bad everywhere. And this became like a meme, this became a thing people joked about, because like people can't help but orientalize Japan and countries like it all the time. It's just not an uncommon occurrence to see someone talk about Japan, talk about basic things that like every country has or every country does, and be like, wow, isn't it so incredible that Japan does this? And I think at first glance that could seem like a positive thing to someone who is not from Japan, but like, I think it like infantilizes their culture. Like I think it's actually kind of disrespectful to be like, wow, did you know in Japan that murder is frowned upon? Like it's a country made of human beings. Not everything they do is novel and interesting, and that's a good thing. And so the main place that this tweet comes up is when people do that, when they orientalize Japan or orientalize other countries. Like it came up a few months later when Tessa Davis gave a 10 must-know Japanese concept that will improve your life. And as Unseen Japan noted, these are literally just ordinary Japanese words. Please stop doing this, we're all begging you. Because I'm not going to go through them, but they really were. There was like basic concepts that every culture kind of has. And that led Emil to respond to Unseen Japan's post with the meme. Murder is actually really frowned in Japan. It goes to the traditional concept of ikiru, which means to live. Another place I saw it used in reference to Japan is this guy Jeremy, who was talking about having a discussion with a friend of his that is in Japan, and he was saying like, oh, people in Japan prefer heroes to villains because heroes try to get perfection and villains are against perfection. And that led Attack the Block to post a screenshot of Noel's tweet. Because once again, what he is saying boils down to, in Japan they like heroes because heroes are good, and they don't like villains because villains are bad. And I'm not even saying that there might not be a slight cultural difference between the ways that heroes and villains are perceived in different cultures, but the way that he's phrasing it is very much murder is actually really frowned in Japan. I do admit that it's funny that the version that became popular is frowned in Japan, as opposed to frowned upon in Japan, which is tripping me up when I try to read it basically every time. And it gets used in reference to other cultures when this sort of thing comes up. When in a TikTok comment, Mario said, Junhee can't die because it's illegal to kill someone pregnant in Korea, which led Reese to quote that and say, murder is actually really frowned upon in Korea. It goes against the traditional concept of salgiwie, which means to live. Or a few months ago when Iran was being bombed, Malcolm Harris tweeted, NPR guest explaining that the Persian people are a proud ancient culture, so they, quote, don't like to be attacked. Which led Luke to say, murder is actually really frowned upon in Iran. It goes against the traditional concept of liraishi, which means to live. Genuine apologies if I butchered either of those. I thought it was better to give it a try than just say foreign word, but I might have been wrong. Faith posted a screenshot from the Wikipedia page for Skinwalker, in which it says, a person becomes a skinwalker by killing someone in their family, which is a really evil thing to do according to the Navajo. And Faith noted murder is actually frowned upon in Japan. Because this one's even sillier, like, yeah, of course it's frowned upon to kill someone in your own family. That's a thing across every culture that's ever existed. One that I'm not sure whether it actually applies, but I think it might be of some interest to people, is this person, Oaksarks, who was talking about how Yuri has nothing to do with LGBT, and that's a Western misconception. It's more about purity and innocence. Girls in Yuri stories most of the time aren't lesbian. To put it bluntly, they just fool around but actually crave a man. If they were lesbians, the appeal of Yuri would be lost. Which led Amelia to post a screenshot of Noel's tweet. The reason I say I'm not sure if it applies is because, like, this is not my world, and I have no idea who is actually right in this situation. What Oaksarks is saying seems silly to me on its face, but, like, I don't know. I'm sure that there are some real Yuri heads in the comments who can clarify who is right here. And this meme has gotten big enough where it's sometimes used when someone just says something super obvious. Like when Gracie posted this post, which was theater tips. And some of the tips were things like, when your character is angry, act angry, and make sure you memorize your lines. Which led Brett to say, in Japan, murder is frowned upon. Because yes, if you're in a play, you should learn your lines. That is as self-explanatory as murder is bad in insert country. I think this, which on its face could be a niche meme, has blown up because we all kind of know someone who talks about other cultures this way. And it's really annoying because once again, they think that they're being kind. They think that they're doing a good thing. Like, oh my god, I'm complimenting them. But all it does is just otherize them. Like, the Japanese, nor any culture, needs a special concept to understand why murder is bad. And all it ends up doing is just making other cultures seem more alien in a way that they shouldn't. Also, you sound like a complete moron. Like, yeah man, murder is frowned upon in Japan. You're trying to tell me they don't like stealing. Follow me for a new tweet every day, and if you want to join in on Subscriber Sundays like these, please join my Patreon, patreon.com/Museum of Twitter, where you can vote on what I cover on Subscriber Sundays, and you get a weekly bonus episode called the Museum of Not Twitter.